Being born in a city full of love, laughter, and joy, I had always envisioned a fairy tale romance that will let us to grow old together. When I met James, I thought my dreams were coming true. He was everything I had ever desired: charming, successful, and incredibly attentive. We met at a charity event where James exuded the kind of effortless charisma that captivated everyone around him. His career as a senior partner at a prestigious finance firm meant he lived a life of luxury and extravagance, qualities that he was more than happy to share with me. From the start, James spoiled me with extravagant gifts and grand gestures. Our dates were often held in the most luxurious venues, and our weekends were spent traveling to exotic destinations. He made me feel cherished and adored, leaving no stone unturned to ensure I felt loved. Despite his seemingly perfect exterior, there was a small voice of doubt that began to grow louder as time went on. James had an extensive network of both male and female friends, all of whom were as polished and successful as he was. At first, I thought little of it. It was natural for him to have a wide circle of friends. But over time, I noticed something peculiar about his interactions with them. He was unusually touchy and affectionate, hugging them tightly, holding hands, and often displaying a level of intimacy that seemed inappropriate for mere friendship. They always move together and go partying, clubbing, and whenever I try to go with them, they don't allow it. When I voiced my concerns to James, he was always quick to reassure me. "You know how close we all are," he would say, his voice warm and soothing. "It's just how we show our affection. You have nothing to worry about." His reassurances were often accompanied by romantic gestures, surprise weekend getaways, heartfelt letters, and lavish gifts. Each time he would look me in the eye with that earnest sincerity that made it hard to question him. The grand gestures seemed to silence my doubts, even if just temporarily. As our wedding day approached, I was swept up in the excitement. James's enthusiasm for the event was palpable, and he threw himself into the preparations with an energy that was both impressive and overwhelming. His best friend, Precious, was deeply involved in the process, frequently seen by James's side. Precious was charismatic and engaging, and their bond seemed close, almost familial. While I tried to ignore the discomfort that flared up whenever I saw James and Precious together, I couldn't completely shake the unease. Precious was always around, lending a helping hand and sharing private jokes with James. Their interactions were playful and intimate, often accompanied by touches that seemed more suited for a romantic partner than a friend. Despite the nagging voice in the back of my mind, I was determined to focus on the joy of the upcoming celebration. James's love and dedication were overwhelming, and I convinced myself that any doubts I had were unfounded. The wedding plans were coming together beautifully, and I eagerly anticipated the day that would mark the start of our life together. On the day of the wedding, everything was set for a perfect celebration. I was surrounded by my bridesmaids as we prepared for the ceremony, the excitement in the air almost tangible. As we went through the final touches, a wedding coordinator approached me with a minor issue regarding the seating arrangements. I agreed to review the details before heading to the church. The venue was bustling with activity, and it was more beautiful than I had ever imagined. The staff was putting the final touches on everything, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. I was directed to a quiet room where I could go over the seating plan. The room was empty, and as I was about to leave, I heard muffled voices coming from a nearby storage closet. Driven by curiosity, I approached the storage closet, thinking it might be a place where staff were discussing final arrangements. The voices grew louder, and I carefully opened the door, not expecting what I would find inside. The sight that greeted me was like a punch to the gut. James and Precious were inside, their bodies pressed together in an intimate embrace. They were kissing passionately, their hands exploring each other in a way that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. The scene before me was a stark contrast to the image of devoted partners James had always presented to me. I stood there in stunned silence, my heart pounding, my thoughts racing. The betrayal was so raw and shocking that it felt as though the world had suddenly tilted off its axis. My dreams of a perfect future with James were shattered in an instant. The grand plans, the love, the dedication, it all felt like a cruel illusion. James and Precious finally noticed me. Their faces went pale, and they broke apart, their expressions a mix of guilt and panic. James's voice was shaky, filled with desperation as he tried to find words to explain. "Emily, I can explain." I raised a trembling hand to stop him, my voice breaking with anguish. "There's nothing left to explain, James. Everything I believed in is a lie. Why didn't you just tell me? You took me for a fool and rubbed it in face and on our wedding day?" I turned and fled the room, my heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. The once exciting atmosphere of the wedding felt suffocating. I wandered aimlessly through the venue, the laughter and celebration now a distant murmur. I felt like an intruder in my own story, overwhelmed by the crushing reality of what I had just witnessed. I found a quiet corner away from the chaos and sat down, trying to compose myself. The tears came uncontrollably, each one a testament to the hurt and disappointment that overwhelmed me. My friends and family were searching for me, their concern evident, but I was too lost in my own heartbreak to face them. James eventually found me, his face a mask of sorrow. "Emily, please let me explain. I never meant for this to happen." I looked up at him, my eyes red and swollen from crying. "James, how could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this?" He reached out to touch me, but I recoiled, unable to bear his presence. "I need to be alone," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Please, just go." James's expression crumbled, and he nodded slowly, turning to leave. I watched him go, feeling a profound sense of finality. The wedding that was meant to be the start of our life together now felt like a painful end. The rest of the evening was a blur of muted sounds and fleeting images. I went through the motions of the reception, but my heart was no longer in it. The guests, the music, the celebration, all seemed hollow and distant. I felt like a ghost at my own wedding, grappling with the enormity of the betrayal. As the night wore on, I made my way back to the hotel where we were supposed to spend our wedding night. I packed a small bag with essentials, knowing that I needed to leave, and told my family about everything, and that they should cancel the wedding. The hotel, which had once symbolized the beginning of our new life together, now felt like a prison. Checking out of the hotel, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The life I had envisioned with James was gone, replaced by a painful reality that I had to face. As I drove away from the hotel with my best friend Grace, the city lights blurred in my vision. I felt a deep sense of loss, but also a burgeoning determination to reclaim my own life. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing and rebuilding. My friends and family reached out to support, their kindness and understanding helping me navigate the difficult emotions and practicalities of moving on. James attempted to contact me, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The trust between us had been irrevocably broken, and I needed to focus on my own well-being. Looking back, I realized that the wedding day was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter. I had faced betrayal and heartbreak, but I had also found the courage to move forward. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. I decided to move to a new town to start afresh and have a new atmosphere. In the heart of a quaint town, Emily walked into her favorite restaurant, seeking solace in its unfamiliar warmth. Since discovering her husband's betrayal, she had rebuilt her life and vowed never to love again. Tonight, she was content with her solitary life and thriving business. As she settled into a corner booth, the restaurant's cozy ambiance enveloped her. Her usual quiet spot was unexpectedly occupied by someone else. The host led her to a different table, next to a window where a man was already seated, casually sipping his coffee. Sarah glanced at the man, who looked up and offered a shy smile. He introduced himself as Ray, and they struck up a conversation, initially about the menu and later about their lives. Ray was refreshingly sincere, his laughter lightening the mood around them. As they talked, Sarah found herself opening up in ways she hadn't anticipated. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters at the restaurant became a cherished routine. Ray, with his humble charm and genuine affection, began to feel like a reassuring constant in Emily's life. He never had much to offer except his unguarded presence, but it was more than enough. One evening, as Emily was enjoying a quiet dinner, her phone buzzed. It was her best friend with urgent news. "Emily, I've just heard about your ex. What about him? I've moved on." He's been involved in shady activities and contracted HIV from one of his flings. The revelation hit me with a mix of shock and relief. My past was finally laid to rest, and looking at Ray, I felt a profound sense of closure and new beginnings. Taking his hand, I realized that while I had never planned to love again, fate had led me to someone who made the future look bright and hopeful.